My mother remarried a narcissist. How could you do this to your own mother? My mom screamed down the phone to me. This was the first time she had contacted me for 5 years. Brandon turned 21 last week, but to get to that sentence, I need to start at the beginning. My mother, Jane, 49, F, had me with my father Andrew, who died when I was 4. They did not marry, so from 4 until I was 10. It was just my mother and me. When I was 10, my mother introduced me to Michael, 52M, and his daughter Grace, 19F. Michael is a weekend dad to Grace. When we first met, he was nice enough. He was not trying to be a second dad, but he was pleasant enough. He proposed to my mom. She asked me what I thought, and I said I was okay with it. My first mistake. They started bringing Grace around, and I liked her. She was nice. She was very pretty, and we played video games. When I was 11, Michael and Mom got married, and Michael moved into our house. When I was 13, Mom gave birth to my half-brother Justin, ATM. Michael decided to be more dominant in the house. He would punish me for not doing chores. He tried giving my room to Grace, but I refused, and Grace told him she would not take it. He would pick fights and then lie to my mom, telling her I was being disrespectful. My mom believed him. I was constantly grounded, and my life was miserable. On my 14th birthday, I tried to end it all. My mom was sitting by my hospital bed crying. Michael growled at me that he wished I succeeded. I was taken in by my father's parents. They refused to let me go back. My grandma said something at the time that I thought was strange. She told them that they will regret treating me so badly. Michael scoffed, thinking he had all the power, and told her to get out of his house. My mom looked sad. My grandma said it wasn't his house and was about to say something else, but Mom stopped her. A year later, I went back for Christmas, and Michael was intolerable, and my mom was indifferent. They lavished gifts on Grace and Justin. I got a book token and a card. Grace hit the roof, calling both my mom and Michael assholes, and that they should be ashamed of themselves. On my 16th birthday, my mother did not ring me. Michael sent me a message saying to never contact them again. I was not welcome in my home, and that my mother did not want to see me ever again. I cried myself to sleep for a week all this time. My grandma said, "Do not worry." I received a happy birthday message from Grace. It basically says she knows her dad is a dick, and that she cannot wait to go no contact with him. I threw myself into school and graduated as valedictorian, and was awarded a scholarship to MIT. I started to look for jobs, but Grandma told me that I had a trust fund for college. My father had owned his own business and was wealthy, and had left my grandmother the trustee of his wealth and my college fund. I worked hard at college, and am starting my final year of my engineering major next fall. I have a girlfriend called Sarah. It is casual, but we are having fun. My 21st birthday was last week. I celebrated it with my college buddies, then went to Grandma's to spend it with my dad's family. My Aunt Ruth asked me what I was going to do with the house. I said what that is when Uncle Roger told me that the house my mom and Michael are living in belongs to me. Everything in the house belongs to me. My parents were not married, and the entire estate was left to me with my grandma as the trustee. Until I reached 21, the business has been run by Uncle Roger for me. It turns out Michael is one of my employees. I will receive a stipend from the trust until I am 30, and then I gain full control of the trust. I asked Uncle Roger if he could carry on running the business. He agreed instantly. I also gained control of all my father's real estate portfolio. I own pretty much every house in my family, including my mom's, so I went to an attorney on Monday morning and we discussed everything. I decided at that moment that I was going to evict my mother and her husband from my home. So my attorney sent them a 30-day notice to quit the property, hence the phone call from my mother this morning. She was berating me that I was made to listen how I was a horrible son, but we were family. How could I do this to my brother? Why am I still holding a grudge? Just keep the peace. After her rant, I calmly as I could, I was mad, told her that I had not seen her in 6 years, that she chose Michael over her own son, and she let Michael treat me badly for the years, and she knew I owned that home. Yet she and Michael pushed me out. I hung up on her and was tempted to block her number. I am second-guessing whether I am doing the right thing. Update. My mother remarried a narcissist Part 2. I know it has been only a week, but so much has happened. It is unreal. So the day after I hung up on my mom, I switched my phone onto silent mode and went out with Sarah. The following morning, I had 102 missed calls from several numbers, the majority of them being Michael's. I also had several messages that ranged from him trying to be nice to talk about the misunderstanding to anger that I was not answering. to threats that he was going to come to my school and kick my ass. As I was walking through campus, I bumped into Grace. I may have forgotten, but Grace had started at MIT last year. We bumped into each other and we started to chat sometimes. I have Grace in my friend group. Grace tried to cut off Michael after that Christmas and refused to go back to the house, but she still had to have phone calls until she was 16. She also went NC with him on her 16th birthday. She occasionally speaks to my mom, but as Michael tries to take over, it is only when my mom is on her own, usually when Michael is at work. Your father is trying to contact me, I tell her. She asked why. I told her about the fact that I actually owned their house and sent them a 30-day notice. She was shocked. She told me her dad thought it was my mom's, and he had been trying to get her to sell it and buy somewhere else after I left, but she kept saying she could not. Michael was not pleased. He asked why, and she kept telling Michael was that because it was my home. Michael said I did not live here anymore, and it did not matter. But now Grace realized that Mom was telling Michael that I owned the home. He was just misinterpreting what she was saying. As we were talking, my phone rang again. Grace asked if it was her dad. I said no, it was my grandma, Mom's mom. Grandma was screaming down the phone. How could I do that to my mom after what I did to her years ago? I hung up on her and blocked her number. After what I had done to her years ago, she was the one who abandoned me for some dick. Michael rang again. I picked up this time. He was yelling, calling me ungrateful after he had raised me, and I should just give them my house, and I was making my brother and sister homeless. I told him I had no siblings and he did not raise me, and he can go fuck himself, and hung up and blocked him. Grace looked at me and said, "Sister, but I do not go there anymore?" I told her I did not know. Then we parted ways and went to class. Then my mom's family were making posts on social media on how I was abandoning the family again, how I was ungrateful, and how I am still holding a grudge for all these years. Then a lot of the posts got taken down the next day. Uncle Roger messaged me saying he was dealing with it. Turns out 90% of my mom's family work in my company, and if the chairman of the board tells you to take something down, you do it. Well, this morning my mom's father phoned me and asked if I would come to their house tomorrow for a family meeting over the house. He says we need to clear the air. I asked if I could bring a couple of people for support. He said yes. So I phoned Grandma and Uncle Roger. I also messaged Grace and asked her if she would like to come too. Update: my mother remarried a narcissist, part 3. So I went to my grandparents' house and it was a whole storm has hit. First things first. My mom and Michael had a second child, Freya 2F, obviously, as Grace and I had been non-contact. We did not know. I will start with when we arrived at my maternal grandparents' house. Sarah, Grandma, Uncle Roger and Grace decided to come. I walked in, and all my mom's side of the family seemed to be there. They looked angry until Uncle Roger walked in, and then a few of them started to disperse. Funny that your boss walks into a room and your ego gets deflated. My maternal grandma started to speak, telling me I was selfish and ungrateful, that I was breaking my mother's heart again, that I was throwing away family, and that I should treat them better. Michael then chirped in to show gratitude for raising me, that I should sign over the house to him. I was about to blow up until my grandma interrupted and asked him what he meant by raising him. She raised me from the time I was 14, after I had attempted to take my own life, due to his bullying of me. The room went silent, and everyone looked from me to Mom and Michael. She then spoke and said, "Jane, I told you that I would have evicted you if you did not let me take him, as I was responsible for the house. He was not safe there. You blamed everyone but that man. You even chose him by abandoning your son on his 16th birthday. I had to comfort him for weeks after that and get him therapy." She then turned to my other grandparents and asked where they had been for the last 6 years. My mom started crying and said that she did not abandon me, I abandoned her. "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked her. "I have your message from Michael. The one where he told me you no longer wanted me to contact you anymore. You did not even wish me a happy birthday." I pulled out my phone and opened my phone and scrolled past the recent messages from Michael to the message he sent that day. "Well, after the messages you sent me, why shouldn't he have sent that?" My mother yelled, "I did not send you any messages. What are you talking about? The messages that you sent me telling me you hated me and that I failed you and that I was worthless and a bad mother." My mother replied, seething. My mother's family were stood around nodding. I was about to say something when Uncle Roger piped up. "Show us the messages." My mother grabbed her phone. Michael suddenly looked scared and tried to stop Mom from handing her phone to us. There were several messages on there from after Christmas that year up until my birthday, saying how much I hated her, how she ruined Christmas, how she was selfish and never loved me, and that I wanted nothing to do with her or her husband and their kid. There were also lots of messages wishing me a Merry Christmas and a Happy Birthday, and that she missed me up until I turned 19. Then they just stopped. As I was looking, there was something strange. Why are these messages green? I asked my mother. What are you talking about? My mother asked, I have an iPhone, so do you if you are sending messages to me, they should be blue. Not green. Green means that it was sent over SMS. I opened my contact on my mother's phone. There were 2 cell numbers saved under my name. The first one was mine. The second one was a number I did not know. I rang the second number, and a ringtone came from Michael's pocket. The entire room looked at Michael. He ran out of the house and got in his car and drove off. I gave my mother her phone back and told her when she was ready to apologize she could contact me. I left. Grace got in the car and started screaming. How could my father be so low? Update: my mother remarried a narcissist, part 4. It is 2 days since my last post. I would have updated sooner, but I had stuff going on. Firstly, my mom's sister and brother are currently staying with me at my apartment, as Michael does not know where I live. Secondly, Michael no longer works for me and is currently in police custody. I'm running ahead of myself, so I will start with Sarah, and I dropped Grace off, and then I took Sarah back to her dorm, and then just got back to my apartment, and finished my last update when my maternal grandma rang, asking if I could come back to their house. My grandma was there looking somber, and my mom was sat there sobbing. She looked at me, and I could see the red welt around her left eye. I knew instantly what had happened. Michael had punched her. My grandma asked if I could take my mom home with me, as no one knew where I lived, and Michael will no doubt try to come here and force my mother back. So I agreed to take my mother and my half-siblings back with me. So after we got back and put my brother and sister to bed, I sat and had a conversation with my mother. She told me she had left the kids with her mom and went back to the house to speak to Michael. She said he tried to gaslight her, telling her that it was not what she thought. She shouted at him to explain himself. Then the story goes like this. After the Christmas that I got the book token, my mom flipped out on Michael as he had taken all the presents she got for me and gave them to Grace and Justin. She could not take the presents away from Grace, and especially Justin, so she had to take Grace's rage and my indifference. As I had tried to end it all earlier that year, she was already annoyed with him. She had realized he was bullying me and pushed away her son. The thing that got Michael was Grace's reaction. She went home to her mom and refused to return. She hated how her father treated me, and that was the end of their relationship. Michael blamed me. So he decided to put another phone number as my contact with my mom. He then sent the messages to my mom claiming I hated her to get her away from me and have his perfect little family. My mom was never really tech-savvy and did not realize that iMessage and SMS were things. My mom and Michael had a serious row. Michael told her he was the man of the house and I disrespected him in his own home. My mom pointed out it was my house, not his, so he was not the man of the house. And then she told Michael to get out of the house. He lost his temper and punched my mom. I let Mom have my bed and I slept on the couch. The next day I called Grace and Sarah and had them look after the kids whilst I took my mom to the police station to file a report. Whilst my mom was filing the report, I phoned my Uncle Roger, who confirmed he was at his desk. When she finished, I told the officers of his location. My Uncle Roger told me what happened. The police arrived and he took them into a meeting room downstairs. He then had security go to get Michael and escorted him to the same meeting room he was taken in and arrested on the spot. He was also informed he was fired. He is due in court in the morning, where he will probably be given a restraining order against my mom, and we are going today to change the locks on the house. Michael, when he is released, can come by with an officer to get his stuff, and then never darken my door again. I have not forgiven my mom for the years of abuse she allowed by Michael and the alienation, but I have asked we go to therapy. I hope we can get past this. Update. My mother remarried a narcissist, part 5. So it is 2 years since I last posted. Sarah and I are no longer a thing. She could not take any more of the drama and broke things off. I do not blame her. I want to say I'm upset, but I really was not. Michael was released the afternoon after my last post and was given a restraining order, so a police officer accompanied him to the house to get his stuff. He was told he was only allowed one trip. I had a locksmith waiting who changed the locks as soon as he left. Then he started to ramp up his entitlement. He first tried to sue for the house, claiming that it was first marital property, and then that I said they could have the house, though he lacked evidence. He tried suing for unemployment benefits as he didn't receive any as he was fired for cause. He tried suing for attorney fees, child support, alimony, literally anything. Once the divorce was finalized, he was awarded supervised visitation once a fortnight. He was ordered to pay child support and alimony. He tried to argue that I had the means to support everyone, but the judge pointed out that I am not responsible for providing for his children. He also found it difficult finding a job as the company will only give dates and cause of leaving as a reference. My mom and I have been having therapy and going through a lot of feelings, the main one being the fact that she never listened to me and always took Michael's side. She apologized almost 1,000,000 times. I have moved back into my house to help with my siblings and have started to work at my company. I started as an engineer. My uncle said I could have any job, but I told him if I want to take over, I need to work with the guys on the floor and get to know them first. Most of the guys I work with are great. There is a couple on the janitorial team who are AHs. One of them is called Richard but insists everyone calls him Flash. Apparently he was a big deal football player in high school. I met a girl last year who works near a coffee shop that I frequent. Her name is Olivia, 22. We started dating, and it is getting serious. She loves Freya and Justin. Freya absolutely adores Olivia every time she visits her, and Freya must have a tea party. If Grace is here too, she also must join. On Grace, she is in her final year, and had met a guy named Trevor. He is quite shy, but he makes Grace happy. I will update if anything exciting happens, but I must go and meet Olivia, as she has some news for me. Update. My mother remarried a narcissist, Part 6. It is 5 years since my last update. There is so much that happened. The meeting I had with Olivia was her telling me some news. I am a father of Andrew, 4. My grandma cried when I told her his name. I also have a daughter, Willow. 2F. My mom is loving being a grandma. The funny thing is, Freya, 9, is loving being a bossy aunt. Justin is just a grumpy teenager. Michael, for his part, carried on trying to get back at my mom and me. He was complaining to anyone who listened. He found my post and was trying to insult me along with his flying monkeys. He went for one lawsuit too many. Though on his last attempt I countersued for attorney fees due to the case being frivolous, and with malice the judge found in my favor and awarded damages as well. He was on the hook for $80,000 as well as child support. He got the picture and moved away. He was also convicted of domestic violence and was given a permanent restraining order from my mother. My mom met someone new, Ian, 57. They have been dating for 3 years and she is taking things slow. I do not think they are going to move in yet. Michael left a lot of scars. Olivia and I got married 3 years ago. We had a beautiful wedding at my father's mountain house in Colorado. It must have made an impression on Grace as she and Trevor got married there last week. The wedding was amazing. Grace wore a wonderful dress and Trevor looked dashing in his suit. Grace's mom and stepdad came. Freya was the flower girl, and Justin was a groomsman. Olivia was maid of honor. Andrew was the ring bearer, and Sarah was a bridesmaid. Mom looked after Willow. Michael tried to crash the wedding. He was pissed that he was not only not allowed to give Grace away, but he was not allowed to attend. He was arrested as I had hired security, and there is still a restraining order on him for my mom, who gave Grace away. You may ask, well, I did. She asked if I would give her away, as I have been more of a family to her than her dad. Other than that, I moved up to HR in the company. Uncle Roger is planning to retire next year, so I will be stepping up to his role. I think spending time in HR is a valuable tool. My first act was to fire Richard the janitor. He failed a statutory drug test. He was not pleased. Security had to escort him off the premises. We had to ensure he handed his keys back. For the house, my mom still lives there. I bought the house next door. That is where Olivia and I live. I hope I don't need to update again, but you never know.